Thank you for tuning in to watch our Invest Miami 2023 launch conference. You're about to watch panel number 3, Innovation and Sustainability. Planning a strong foundation today for an uncertain future. Enjoy.
Okay. Good morning still, everyone. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to some people that are here. We stick together in Aventura. We've got our Vice Mayor, Mead Bloom, is here. Commissioner Paul Cruz.
Turn it off, dude.
Commissioner Rachel Friedland. Commissioner Billy Joel. You've heard of him. We have our Assistant City Manager, Brian Pegues. Our Director of Communications, Evan Ross. And we have former Aventura Mayor, Enid Weissman. And now for our panel. At the far end, we have John Hage, founder, president, and CEO of Charter Schools USA. I can tell you they do a fabulous job with our schools, our K through 12 in Aventura. Daniel Salas, VP and General Counsel for Solamia, right up the street. And Ronaldo Borges, Principal and CEO. I'm going to try it the non-gringo way now. Borges and Associates. Not bad, not bad. So, I'm going to ask some, open-ended questions from our panel of experts. Obviously, Miami-Dade's been undergoing a transformation for some time. Residents are benefiting from more choices on where to live, where to send their kids to school, where to spend free time, leading to a surge in population growth and interest in our county. But to achieve sustained economic success, it'll take the innovative solutions that each of our panelists today are working on. So, question for all of you. Considering the current state of today's market, how has innovation taken on a newfound importance when it comes to business and economic development strategies? Whoever wants to take that one first.
All right, let's try this one. This is friendlier. So it's fantastic, to be in this conversation today. As a future-focused architect, I try to serve my clients, with an overview of the choices that we have to make as we continue to build South Florida and densify South Florida. And today here we've talked a lot about the future and artificial intelligence. Some of the things that threaten us, the threats that I call stresses in the community, are really the drivers of innovation that we need to bring forth, right? So when we talk about innovation in the context of South Florida, we have to think about the future, right? So, as we look at the growing sort of urban realm of South Florida, the future has changed on us, right? So what does that mean? When the future has changed on us, we have to think differently about the way we continue to build this community and address all the drivers, that affect the stresses, affordability, how we bring all these technology companies, to a place that has a sustainable future, right? And a lot of people sort of ask me, how could this be sustainable to have all this growth? And architects are typically optimistic about the future, and I know that I'm optimistic, but I'm also concerned, that we don't have a game plan individually of how do we deal with the future. So I think, we'll talk more about this, but I think when I talk about innovation in the way that we build the city, you got the basics, transportation, infrastructure investment, and how do we make sure that we're creating the right platform for the continued growth that is coming to us, which is both a blessing and of great concern.
So first, thank you, Capital Analytics, for having this event and having us here and letting us partake. Really appreciate it. It's a great event so far. With respect to innovation, I think the biggest component of that, with respect to our field, is communication with our customer, our residents, the phone, right? Before, over the last 10 years, we could communicate with hundreds of thousands of people at once. and our global reach, our reach to the entire community that we want to reach out to is instant, right? And so not only do we get a larger marketing platform, but also with our current residents, our current owners, we have a open line of communication with them at all times of the day. And it helps us be better builders, better developers, better owners, and it helps us understand what their needs, what their demands are, and what they're looking for. So the ability, to communicate is just, it's exploded. And it really, if you can take advantage of that as a developer and as a owner of properties, I mean, it's invaluable. So that's one of the things that we've seen as one of the most important aspects of technology that we've taken advantage of so far.
Keep passing it around. Good thing COVID's not alive anymore, right? Thanks for having us today. It's a great partnership we have with the City of Aventura, and I think it represents the kind of innovation we're talking about today. It's a public-private partnership, Charter Schools USA, a private company that I started 25 years ago right here in Miami with the first charter school in the state in Liberty City. And the concept was to create an environment where public education run more in many ways like a private school, right? With the uniforms and the accountability, but was available to all families, all students, regardless of their zip code. So that zip code was less important than the opportunity to change a society, to create more innovation, to create long-term prosperity. You have to invest in education. But it's not just an investment in money, it's an investment in what works. And what works is that when parents feel that they're a part of the process, which has happened in Dade County at a level unprecedented across the country. In fact, the traditional system, if you look at what has happened, if you talk to the superintendent, the former superintendents, they will tell you that they embraced this idea of parental and school choice early on, rather than resisting the concepts of it, which has elevated Dade into one of the foremost strong and high-achieving school systems in the country. And that happens not just with traditional public schools, but with public charter schools, with innovations like you heard earlier, with virtual and with even the vouchers. And these things honestly have propelled Florida, I think, and Dade in a way that many of us still don't even understand. So for example, one little point of data, we were 46th in the country. Florida was on the national NAEP assessments 25 years ago when I started charter schools, you say. Today we're 4th. We now have the #1 public university in America, the University of Florida just got ranked #1. That's a testament. That's a testament to having creative nonprofit, private, and public partnerships that have definitely elevated the quality of life, especially here in Miami-Dade.
Thank you. This next question is for bachelor number 2. If you were stranded on a deserted island, sorry, couldn't resist. For all of you, gentlemen, considering the numerous successes Miami-Dade County has seen through the years, what do you feel are those unique or defining characteristics that continue to make us a one-of-a-kind area for business expansion, relocation, and development? Any order?
So obviously there's, the key components, geography, weather, location. That's always gonna, set Miami-Dade County and South Florida apart from, most of the country. But the more micro and more, unique parts of Dade County and South Florida are, the little hubs that exist, right? And so when you start, I'm a local, born and raised here, but when you talk to people that come down here and start living here over the last couple of years, they realize just how different the little municipalities are from each other in every part of Dade County. And there's just completely different cultural, historic aspects throughout the county that are unique and really, don't really exist anywhere else in the country. And it really has kind of blown up in the last 10 years, where you have all these little pockets that just have their own character, their own culture, their own identity. You look at Midtown, Wynwood, Design District, those are all just, brand new little cities that have popped up. And there's 100 more of those to come within the county over the next 10 years, 20 years. And I think that's really what sets us apart. Obviously, North Miami, we feel North Miami is the next one up with Solomia. And you're gonna see a bunch of these little areas just kind of explode with development and productivity and just a uniqueness about them that will hopefully bring in more development, more visitors, more residents that choose to make Miami-Dade their home and appreciate the value of what makes us special.
Yeah, I'll just add that what you're seeing behind the scenes that sometimes isn't clearly understood is the kind of collaboration that doesn't take place in most communities around the country, but we really started here, and that is the idea that the public sector and the private sector really had to kind of, compete for resources, but today you see a collaboration. So for example, developments that look at educational opportunity as a part of their development, like Solomia or others throughout the state, it has really changed the perspective. So it used to be that if you were building homes, you basically gave away dirt, and then eventually maybe the district built a school there or not. Today, now, the development says, hey, education is a center point of the quality of life of what we want to build for our residents. How do we partner with innovations like charters and others to create something like Aventura has done, like the city of Miami and like other parts, Doral, et.cetera. And so you have this kind of newfound opportunity that is creating better work, live, play spaces that allow for folks because real estate is still, families still look for the quality of the school as one of the #1 indicators for where they're going to buy or rent, where they're going to live. And so if you can change that dynamic and not make it based on what it is, and you can't do anything about it, versus you can be a part of the solution, which is what you're seeing happening throughout this community and throughout the state, then you start to understand that it's not just, that's the school district's problem, or that's just the transportation department's problem. It's actually a solution that's being brought together in many communities around the state, and it's being led by folks on this panel.
Yes, so besides Messi now being in Inter Miami and bringing the Messi effect to South Florida, this is a beautiful place, right? So people are attracted to a beautiful place with a great environment, and the relationship that we have to Latin America for trade and other types of businesses is fantastic. So Miami will continue to be that focus, and now we're attracting the technology companies, and the greatest concern about all this, right? Because when you live in paradise and paradise continues to densify, we are a community that thrives on densification and reinvention of itself in the real estate sector. It was said earlier that we have two drivers, which is tourism and development and construction, right? And as an architect, I'm very happy to hear that. Again, we'll talk with other questions that the mayor will ask about other concerns that we should bring to the conversation. But I think, again, we're blessed to be here. We continue to attract, and we'll continue to have people join us in this community. The concern for schooling, transportation, affordability, those are major challenges, and that really requires a lot of collaboration. I think collaboration is key, right? Because political leadership has to be on board, and we need to support political leadership. We're blessed to have a mayor in the county that I think gets it, understands the challenges, but she also has learned the difficulty of changing policy and regulations in this beautiful place. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Now, I'll ask each of you a question based on your particular expertise. First, for Jonathan, what are the creative partnerships that involve the public, the private, and the nonprofit sectors that are helping to solve the current demand for high-quality education?
Thank you, Mayor. Not to sound like I'm giving Aventura a plug, but to give them a plug. The truth is that they didn't have to be in the schooling business, right? Municipalities, by creation, are focused on their other services, and schools are really left to either the private sector or to the school district. And they delved into this 20 plus years ago, and today have two of the highest performing schools in the county, thousands of kids on the waiting list. They developed this in concert with developers. They set aside seats for their residents. They invested money and built amazing facilities and partnered with private industry like us to operate these high-performing schools. And I think it is a representation of where things are moving. More municipalities are doing this kind of work. More developers are working with these kinds of solutions. More ideas are happening with university partners. We're partnered with multiple universities, hospital systems now. We're working with major hospital systems around the country to bring together specific curriculum and focuses around science, innovation, and health to create our next generation of biomedical and innovators in that space. We're doing that in other creative spaces where the industry needs those workers. And we want to have those people come back. We want those young people to not leave Miami. We want them to return and stay here, even if they go away to college or stay here to college or go right into the workforce. So I think those are the creativities that are really, I think, elevating this public-private nonprofit world that really is at the beginning. I mean, yeah, it's 25 sort of years into it, but it's just the beginning. I think it's a 100-year movement. I think you're gonna see more and more of that. And again, Miami-Dade leads that, not just in the state of Florida, but nationally. So when we go to national conferences, when we speak on this internationally, I was just in Europe speaking on this, people wanna come to Florida and say, hey, you did something amazing. Doesn't mean it's perfect yet. We're always innovating, we're always trying to make it better. But we're willing to sort of put down the dividers and say, oh, this is private or public, and say, wait, what's best for students? What's best for families? What's best for communities? And that's what I think is creating so much excitement and innovation going on right now.
Thank you. And for Daniel, in developing a live, work, play community like Solomia, there are many factors to consider, from the retail, residential side to the outdoor components. How is this project a model for how sustainable communities will be developed in the future? And in what ways are you developing the project to not just consider the needs of now, but also those of tomorrow?
Yeah, so thank you. I don't know if we're a model, but we do our best, right? So I think Jonathan made a great point where people still love to live by schools, right? So one of the things that the two major components that we immediately knew we needed when we were, starting our development was, good school nearby. So we made sure we had space to incorporate a school within our development, and access to good healthcare, because those are two major components that residents are always looking for. And so we partnered with UHealth to bring in a massive 350,000 square foot ambulatory center that they're going to open up in the next year and a half. That's going to provide every type of medical service you can think of, within walking distance to our residents, right? And then with respect to master planning, the biggest thing you can plan for is flexibility, and that's the way we've always kind of thought of our community, is be as flexible as possible. Right? I mean, 5 years ago, no one could have predicted COVID. No one could have predicted that residents are going to want to work from home and have work spaces within the building that they can go and work from. Nobody knew that they were going to need so much open space and the need for trails and walkways and active paths throughout our community. So we've been developing those and making sure that we have the space to do that. Mayor and I were talking about this yesterday, pickleball, right? I had never heard of pickleball before 2 years ago. Now it's the most important sport in the world, apparently, right? So we're making sure that we have enough space for pickleball and paddleball, and we partnered with one of the biggest names in paddleball. Then they're going to bring a top-of-the-line flagship facility to our site, which is also include pickleball, which is different, apparently. But so making sure that we're flexible and have that ability to kind of adapt with what our residents want, what our residents need, is the master plan for us, right? Richard Lefrak always says, I'll master plan it when I'm done, right? Which that means, keep your options open, keep the flexibility as much as possible, because you never know what's going to happen in the next year or two, right? And that's kind of where we stand, and we've been doing pretty well doing it that way, I think.
Thank you. For Ronaldo, sustainable design is typically associated with combating environmental factors and lessening one's carbon footprint. Given the rapid population growth of the county and South Florida as a whole, how has the definition of sustainable design changed, especially as it relates to future residential development and the need for more housing? How is this reflected in your current and future projects?
Yeah, so for us right now, sustainability has evolved into a conversation of resiliency, right? So what's the difference between sustainability and resiliency is basically going beyond solar panels and going beyond, saving and consuming less water. I think it's now about how we adapt, and I hear, the concept of the flexible adaptability, right? So for an architect, we've been trying to change regulations, both zoning and building code, the Florida Building Code, with the issue of flexible, adaptable strategies for buildings, right? So the idea is to design buildings that look into a future, a very watery future, about 6 to 7 feet in 100 years of more sea level. That's a serious problem for a coastal community that is so low in elevation overall. So that's a great concern, and we all have to then become futurist and have an action plan. But as an architect and planner and kind of visioning this future, it's all about the basics of how we build what we're building, right? Unfortunately, some of the zoning criterias in all these communities that are around here are not adequate, for this future. A lot of these municipalities don't have the funding nor the mindset yet to really make radical changes to zoning to allow architects to build, elevate without losing, buildable area or height. So it's about elevating and creating a more resilient building, right? We build cities one building at a time most of the times, right? We got to make sure that every building is future-proofed. But then we also need to stress the significance to our political leadership, and good luck with that we need to invest billions of dollars in infrastructure. And that's easier said than done. I think innovating on housing, integrating developments with transit, we really picked that up significantly in Dade County. There's a lot of mixed-use developments that are now related to Metro Rail. Metro Rail is very linear and very minimal in the way that it covers, as a transit system, the entire community. So we need to push on all these things, but it really takes activism at the personal level to make sure that political leaderships understand that where we want them to go, right? You can't allow just political leaders to be the only leaders, right? They're representing us as the people that inhabit this place and want to have a future. I'm now a grandfather, so I look at the future a little bit different through the eyes of my grandchildren, and it is kind of scary what we may see 100 years into the future, right? So when we talk about innovation, it's not just about the threats that artificial intelligence is bringing to us. It's really the climate impact on South Florida, on all coastal communities throughout the world. This is not just a South Florida issue, because we've seen the impact of climate in New York and Boston and other beautiful places. So we're not alone in this fight, but we're very low and people keep coming, right? So we need to look at this growth and how we are smarter in the way that we're building.
Thank you. Well, so much better behaved than the debate last night. So now is your opportunity for your big finish, okay? You each have no more than 2 minutes to tell us all what you see for Miami-Dade's future over the next 5 years. We'll start here and work our way down. No more than 2 minutes. They will cut your mic off.
Okay. Yes, so I think the continued growth is coming, right? So that's just people are addicted to this place, and it's a beautiful place to come to. So I think, again, to be a bit repetitive, I think we need to plan better. We need to make sure that we're codifying the way we build in a smarter way. I have been very focused in terms of changing policy that allows architects to build smarter and more resilient. And it's a big task. Serving the City of Miami Resiliency Task Force for 8 years, I learned a lot. of how government is dysfunctional and kind of like distracted with things that are more like for children than for adults. And I see cities like Aventura innovating on housing with the HERO program, kind of stimulating developers to bring affordable units to the market. How we do that, without the things that are coming from Tallahassee that sometimes could be damaging more than repairing the urban fabric of South Florida. We got to make sure that we own these issues here in Dade County and that we actively work in collaboration with each other to build a better future, more sustainable, more bankable, and reducing the risk.
Yeah, so I'll try to be less than 2 minutes, but I think the growth is going to be steady. I think that the two big factors that affect us to keep that growth consistent is affordability and being able to retain the workforce, right? I think those kind of go hand in hand because the workforce won't stay if it's not affordable to live here, right? So we are under the impression that demand will resolve the affordability crisis, and as we've kind of said before, planning that demand in a way that makes sense is important. I know that Tallahassee has pushed forward this Live Local Act, which has kind of boosted a little bit of that effort. There's mixed feelings on it through municipalities as you talk to different mayors, but it helps with the idea of creating more demand for units, right, and where people can live, and the higher the demand, higher the supply, the lower the cost, right? So we need to be able to keep that demand high and the supply high, right? And the factors that are going to affect that are the costs, and not just construction costs, but cost of insurance, cost of money right now is high. So everything is, we're in a situation where there's a lot of hurdles, but I still think that the uniqueness and the desire for people to live in Miami and South Florida is still going to surpass that. So we just have to work together and figure out ways that to satisfy that demand and figure out how to make it a little bit more affordable. Obviously, we've kind of championed the idea of working with the municipality as much as possible, and so we encourage other developers to do the same. Work with municipalities and try to figure out solutions to these problems because they affect both of us, right? They affect everybody. Whether you can find people to work in construction or within the building department or the zoning department, right? Those are going to affect everybody equally. So working together, I think, is key, and I think Mayor, you've done a good job of that. The City of North Miami has done a really good job of that as well. And so creating those partnerships within the county is going to be essential, I think.
Yeah, so I'm just encouraged by the attendance today and the kind of robust involvement. Everybody stayed even through the panels. You didn't have to, and I was like, nobody's going to be here at the end, so thank you. And honestly, I travel the world, and I'm always involved in these discussions of public-private nonprofit partnerships, innovation, education, whatnot. Our future is obviously our students, our kids, our children. You can tell the health of a future of a community based on how you treat them. It's just that simple. If the young people don't feel welcome back, can't afford to be back, don't have a place to be back, we will end up like Manhattan, and we'll have all the same problems San Francisco has and Chicago, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, around the world. Or we can do what we do here today, which is actually collaborate, take titles off, think together, solve problems locally, not necessarily state or nationally. I think most of the power can be done through these kinds of innovations like you've seen. The Hero Housing in Aventura is a perfect example of that concept of where teachers and police officers can afford to live near the schools and the places that they work. And those kind of solutions take place on micro levels. They take place between folks like us who are constantly thinking together, how do we solve this problem? If the mindset is that it's someone else's problem, it's the public sector, or it's this, or it's one development's problem, then we won't get there. But if the mindset is that the community deserves buy-in, community is what we give to it. It's the time we give to it, it's the effort we give to it, and that's where I'm very optimistic and encouraged about South Florida and Miami's future. And as a fourth generation, my family's fifth generation South Floridians, I can tell you that we're here for another 5 generations. So thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, it's going to take bright minds and hard work, but clearly the future looks great. The future is going to be wonderful for us. I want to thank my great panelists and the wonderful audience. Everyone have a lovely day.